can't help but feel good. I can't help but feel fine. Everything is in its place and everything is mine. I can't help but feel good. I can't help but feel fine. Everything is in its place and all of it is mine. Ooh, I can't help but smile. Ooh, I can't help but smile. I'm reinventing myself. I'm me and nobody else. I'm reinventing myself. I'm me and nobody else. Ooh, I can't help but smile. Ooh, I can't help but smile. Ooh, I can't help but smile.
Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Got started with a little Kid Penny. That's Can't Help But Smile by Kid Penny. I enjoy that tune quite a bit. Thank you so much for joining me. Of course, this is What You Can Do. It's the show where we look at what the internet's talking about, and then we say what you can do about it. I hope y'all are enjoying this 2 for Tuesday. Let's get going on the second show. Oh, we have, this is basically all suggestions from the Wicked audience. So thank you, Franny P. Thank you, Leon Chevalier. Thank you, Wicked Foxy Dragon. Everybody that dropped off a suggestion, boy howdy, that makes it easier for me to do what I do, which is come up with something you can do about the issues that you care about. Awesome. I do want to get us started with a real sign that Trump is cracking. And that can be nothing but good news for sane human beings. Let's have a look. Donald Trump appears to be cracking. The man appears, whoopsie daisy, the man appears to be losing his cool, if he ever had it, and attacking reporters now. Yeah, that's the guy that the right has deemed their champion. That is the guy that the right believes is who should be president next. Yeah. Look, here's Midas Touch talking about it. We're going to come out, we're going to interrupt plenty with why this is a good thing, believe it or not. It's shameful that it's happening, but it is ultimately a good thing for the United States and the rest of the world. Here is Midas Touch with the report on Trump attacking a reporter who was asking him questions about the many crimes he's committed.
I'm Ben Meiselas from the Midas Touch Network. It is now being reported that back in late March, when Donald Trump was on his way on his airplane to Waco, Texas, where he gave an absolutely horrific speech before a small crowd in Waco, that on
Real quick, some of the Wicked community are not in the United States. If you are not aware of the significance of Waco, Texas, well, that is where a cult had a standoff with the U.S. government in the 90s. And as a result of that, a lot of cult members died, including children, as their compound that they were living in burned. So for a president, a former president, and somebody who is running for president to give a speech outside of Waco is in and of itself, it should be offensive to any decent human being. And if it wasn't offensive to you, you either didn't know what Waco is, or you're a bad person. generally speaking.
The airplane, he essentially attacked a reporter. The reporter's name is Vaughn Hilliard of NBC News. And Donald Trump excoriated him for asking just very simple questions about the Manhattan District Attorney's investigation at that time, and then took Vaughn's phone and essentially threw it. And that took place as Donald Trump was going to Waco. I'm sure you remember that rally. We covered it here on the Midas Touch Network, where Donald Trump said some of the most horrific things. I'll play you some of those clips in a bit, but I want to show you this reporting right now from Vanity Fair, which
I realize that reporters are not supposed to be part of the story, but the first thing that should have happened after Vaughn Hilliard had his phone thrown by a former president of the United States is Vaughn Hilliard should have either picked up one of the phones that was still working or gone and got a different one and jumped onto social media and say, "Hey, America, just so you know, Donald Trump attacked me." That is what Vaughn Hilliard should have done. Weakness, yeah, I'm calling it like I sees it. Weakness, like allowing yourself to be attacked because you don't want to make a big stink about it, is unacceptable for the press. Now, this is not to say that a person who is attacked in like civilian life has an obligation to do something about it. They don't. But imagine for a moment, instead of a member of the press, this was a police officer. Imagine somebody ran up to a police officer while they were in uniform and snatched their taser and threw it down the street and ran away. And they just didn't say anything about it. They didn't file a report, yada, yada, yada. Or their captain said, "You can't say anything about this." Somebody in that chain of commands got to go, because we shouldn't be finding out about this just now. Now, maybe Mycelis is going to break down why there was this delay. I only watched part of this because I wanted to. It seems like a enjoy the popcorn moment. But my criticism of the reporter here is that you're helping to establish a country where it's okay to treat a reporter in this manner, and that is part of the problem.
Talks about this incident with Vaughn Hilliard, and this is what it says in the Vanity Fair article. It says, Vaughn Hilliard, who suggested that Trump had in recent days seemed frustrated by the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's investigation, began irritating Donald Trump on the plane. Quote, "Don't ask me any more questions," Trump said. About 10 minutes later, as Hilliard continued to ask about the investigation, Trump snapped, grabbing the reporter's two phones and chucking them to the side, according to a source familiar with the matter. "Get him out of here. Get him out of here," Trump then told his aides, according to a recording obtained by Vanity Fair. Yes, Vanity Fair got the recording where you can hear Donald Trump yelling at Vaughn Hilliard and saying, "Get him out of here, get him out of here." And then you hear silence and then a thud, which is the phone dropping after Donald Trump took the phone and essentially threw it.
I'm going to assume that Vaughn Hilliard was being physically dragged away. Physically dragged away. And the reason I'm going to do this is because I'm trying to give Vaughn Hilliard the benefit of the doubt. If you ever get overpowered by a 77-year-old man who's having a tantrum like a toddler, you don't have the guts to be on that plane. But you know what? I'll give him credit where it's due. He did have the guts to ask the questions. Good. Good, Vaughn Hilliard. Good job. If Trump got angry enough at you to have a little tantrum with your phones, you should be a little embarrassed that he was able to grab a hold of your phones and toss them. I acknowledge that surprise was probably a factor here. But you're worth having there, Vaughn Hilliard. Nobody else was, apparently. If Trump is capable of having this kind of a tantrum, and embarrassing himself and the rest of the United States by behaving in this way, when questions are asked of him, the only questions that should ever be asked of him are the kind that make him have a tantrum. This guy needs to be exposed for the psychopath that he is, for the gigantic old infant that he is. He has a basic understanding of English. Let me be fair. Toddler. The very old toddler. The ancient Padawan. That needs to get exposed more and more and more.
Did throw it. The Vanity Fair article goes on to explain how some of this was previously reported, but not that Donald Trump took the phone and threw it and lashed out the way he did. As Vanity Fair points out, it was previously reported that when he was responding to certain reporters' questions about the Manhattan District Attorney's probe, Donald Trump said at that time, "It's a fake case. It's a fake case." And then he lied at the time and said, the Manhattan District Attorney has already dropped the case. They've totally dropped the case.
Remember, this is a historic case in which, literally, it's going to be written in history books. They didn't drop the case. It is the first time a former president has ever been indicted. So they surely did not drop the case.
That's what he was saying. Just so you know what a liar he is, that's what he was saying in late March to the reporters. He goes, "We did nothing wrong. This is fake news. This is fake news. NBC is the worst. Don't ask me any more questions. You are fake news." That was from the previous reporting. But from the previous reporting, from the new recording that exists, you have Donald Trump basically says, "I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you," referring to Hilliard. "Do you hear me? You are not a nice guy. You are not a nice guy. All right, get him out of here. Let's get him out of here. Out of here. Out of here." And then he goes, "We're done." And then you hear a thud of the phone, which Von Hilliard was using to interview Donald Trump. And that.
When I say Donald Trump acts like a toddler, I'm not using that to exaggerate to make a point. I'm being literal. He has the behavioral development of a young child. He problem solves. See that face Ben Meiselas is making? That's how I feel when I look at people who take Trump seriously. That is what I think of you. If you take Trump seriously, that's my inside thoughts worn on Ben Meiselas' face right now. Because you're admiring someone who didn't have social development beyond the age of 2, maybe 3 years old. "You're not my friend anymore," he literally said to Mike Pence. He literally said, "You're not my friend anymore." He got flustered and he threw a phone. Apparently, according to Cassidy Hutchinson, he threw his food while he was in the White House. Ketchup dripping down the wall from where he threw his food. That's Donald Trump. Do you think I'm happy about this? If you're just out of curiosity, if you're a Republican that happens to be watching this stream, do you think the opposite of you, the person in direct opposition to your political choices, do you think that I'm happy about this? I'll tell you I'm not. I want the villains of my life story to be worthy. I don't want to be tilted at windmills. I certainly don't want the most dangerous person in America right now to be someone who behaves like a toddler. I don't want joke villains. I wish my life was closer to Batman, written by Neil Gaiman, you know? Instead, my life is freaking what? Dexter's Lab? I got joke villains over here. I got ridiculous red-faced old men acting like children. That's what we have to deal with. Nobody is happy about this. Pick better champions, you knuckleheads.
That was Donald Trump grabbing it and throwing it, according to sources. I just want you to think about that for a moment. Could you imagine that behavior if President Obama or President Biden went and grabbed the phone of a reporter and said, "You're not a nice guy, you're not a nice guy," and then took it and like threw it? I mean, can you imagine the scandal that would be? Could you imagine how serious it would be?
And can you imagine how the left would react? I'll tell you, we'd kick his ass out of the public eye faster than you can fathom. You wouldn't have even heard about the story by the time Barack Obama or Joe Biden was booted out of the public consciousness. Because the left, who these people were elected largely, I mean, they were elected to represent all Americans, but they were elected by the left, we'd be ashamed of it, and rightly so. And the fact that Republicans are not ashamed by this behavior, either because they choose to endorse it, the knuckleheads, or because they choose to pretend like it doesn't happen. That's embarrassing for us all. Because when I talk to folks from other countries, goddamn, I carry a little bit of Republican behavior with my reputation. It's disgusting. It's embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. But the good news is, if you're one of these sane Americans who has been against these folks, whether you got there late or you got there just recently, the good news is this behavior tells you the kind of pressure the big baby is under. What was he being asked about when he had his little tantrum? Well, he's being asked about the criminal cases mounting against him. Now he's in the civil rape trial. It's going terribly for him. He's the first ever indicted president. He will likely ever be the first ever convicted president because his defenses are pathetic. We just saw Joe Tacopina arguing in the civil case. You know, he did the standard embarrassing mess that all Trump attorneys end up doing because Trump's defense is incoherent. Because his defense relies on a non-existent reality that he said was so. He is a liar, and that is not going to bode well for him in court. And the pain train is coming for him.
Could you imagine? But here in the modern day, Donald Trump acting like just a complete and utter maniac who's unfit to be anywhere near proximity of power is being treated with kid gloves. And it's like, oh, that's just Donald Trump being Donald Trump. No, that behavior is not normal. That behavior is despicable. Frankly, that behavior is criminal. You know what that is called? Another name for that is assault, and it is also theft. You can't steal someone's phone and then throw it and grab at them and lunge at them. That's assault and battery, and it's also theft. That's what that is. But
I really want Vaughn Hilliard or his corporate masters to press charges. If they have evidence that this happened, there's no reason why they shouldn't press charges. And this guy's behavior needs to be treated exactly like it would be if anybody else acted this way. Police in Waco should have collected Trump. If we lived in a fair country, they would have.
At the same time with that news breaking, it's also been reported that CNN and its reporter Caitlin Collins is going to be hosting a town hall for Donald Trump. CNN has now become the new Fox, apparently, and this is CNN announcing that they will be doing the Trump town hall in New Hampshire. Here, play this clip.
And just into CNN, former President Donald Trump will participate in a CNN presidential town hall next week. The former president will take questions from New Hampshire Republicans and undeclared voters who do plan to vote in the 2024 GOP presidential primary.
Okay. Believe it or not, this is also good news. CNN, for a long time, we've been talking about how they're going to take advantage of Fox's failures to try to steal Fox's audience. This is media motivated by money. So of course they're going to try to do that. But you know what? We've known for a long time what CNN's biases are. They're biased towards the rich. They're biased towards the people that sign their checks, the corporations that purchase ads on their programs. Okay, neat. Guess what MAGA has done for this country? They have exposed the corruption. They didn't mean to. They thought they would be exposing how those evil Dems are out there. I don't know, what was it, drinking baby blood? But they are so incompetent that they take others down with them. And if CNN is willing to bite this apple, they deserve the poison they're going to get. They deserve to no longer be taken seriously by anybody ever again. If you have friends and family that are watching CNN, give them warning. Make it crystal clear what this town hall means. Donald Trump is a traitor to the United States of America, and they're choosing to give him a platform. Kill CNN viewership with these decisions. Embarrass them. They deserve it.
CNN This Morning anchor Caitlin Collins will moderate the May 10th town hall at St. Anselm College at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Stay with CNN News Central.
I mean, how humiliating and embarrassing can you get? I mean, do y'all remember that Waco wacko event that Donald Trump that held? And yeah, that's what happened on the airplane with the reporter, the incident I'm just reporting on now that broke in Vanity Fair. But remember Donald Trump? Donald Trump said this about Stormy Daniels and the Manhattan District Attorney's criminal investigation when he went to Waco. Play this clip.
Marjorie is here, truth to vote, and they found at least 5 million instances on tape, and the courts didn't want to even look at it. The District Attorney of New York, under the auspices and direction of the Department of Injustice in Washington, D.C., was investigating me for something that is not a crime, not a misdemeanor, not an affair. I never liked horseface. It's just not. It's terrible. That wouldn't be the one. There is no one. We have a great First Lady.
Every single Tuesday. Yeah. Look, Ben Meiselas has nailed it. The Trump doesn't need to do any more to demonstrate that he is unworthy of breathing the same air as the rest of us. He is worthy only of sitting in a prison cell for the rest of his days. Now, I'm assuming his days are less than 3 decades. But if he manages to serve a full, 30 years, yeah. If he manages to serve that amount of time, then I would believe he is reformed enough to walk free. What he's not worthy of, certainly, is, number 1, being a free man. Number 2, running for president of the United States. Number 3, having anyone on the planet Earth admire him for anything. He's scum. And if CNN is choosing to platform him, this guy that attacks reporters, this guy that attacks women based on their looks, there's a classy move. If he continues to lie as he does every single day, if he continues to engage in stochastic terrorism, then it's frankly no different than he's acted up till now. He's already demonstrated that he is not worthy of being platformed. CNN has embarrassed itself by choosing to run a town hall with this punk. The good news is he's cracking. He's cracking like an egg. And we need only, when it comes to him, we need only keep up the pressure on the Justice Department. because, frankly, it's inevitable that he will go down for the crimes he has done. And let's just hope he takes as much of the American taint with him as can be hoped for when he goes down, finally. Let's see what the wicked community has to say. Ooh, hello. Douglas Connors, hello. Han Solo, delighted to have you here. Darn it, guys, have to go to bed early shift. Oh, I'm sorry. But we'll catch up tomorrow. Keep up the good fight, brother. Hell yes. Thank you, Han Solo. I've admired your work with the Kessel Run and with the Rebel Alliance. Mars Falcon says, we lost yet another seat in Congress this last census here in California. We got 2 senators for 40 million people, while the Dakotas have 4 for 1 million. Now we have 4? Now we have 10 times the people per rep too. Oof. Yeah. Dawned on Me says, I haven't had cable for like 2 years, and today I unsubscribed to CNN on all my social media platforms. Hell yes. Folks, if you're still subscribed to CNN on any social media, I recommend doing what Dawned on Me just did. Boot 'em. Patrick Kibido says, sorry, but I can't stand Caitlin Collins. She annoyed me as a White House correspondent, and her voice is nails on a chalkboard. I am born and raised and still live in the South. Fair enough. Douglas Cotter says, preach, Jake. I hope he drags as many of his crew down with him as possible. Fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed, I swear. Ooh, Mars Falcon says, yeah, it has been hardly watchable to me for a while. Now they are veering more to the right, and they were already right of center. Mars Falcon in reference to CNN. Wholeheartedly agree. Wireless Mike says done. Hell yes. Hell yes. I love it. Folks, if you're enjoying the stream, consider giving it a like. That's immensely helpful to your old pal Jake. What do you say? We have a gander at one of my favorite human beings on the internet. This gentleman's name is Tom Hartman, and he breaks down why it is that billionaires are supporting this anti-woke stuff. Have a look. The man's name is Tom Hartman, and he brings up a fantastic point. Billionaires supporting anti-woke policies and anti-woke candidates makes no sense unless you're familiar with how the rich and powerful, with how the aristocracy has historically gotten away with treating people terribly. Fortunately, the man has an eye for history, and he tells us a little about it. Let's go. Let's check him out.
Do billionaires really give a rat's ass about woke issues? And I think this is a really important question, and I think it's important for Americans to understand this. There's actually a word, or actually it's 2 words, a phrase to describe what's going on here. And I'll get to that in just a minute, but just, you're going to want to hear this. We have billionaires funding the Republican Party. I mean, hugely. Without billionaire funding in the GOP, they would shrivel up and blow away. And many Americans are wondering why. Why do billionaires believe, for example, or do we really believe, for example, that a fossil fuel billionaire gives a rat's ass about whether a high school student in Florida learns that there are gay people in our world? Or that African Americans in Tennessee were once enslaved? Why do billionaires care about this? American billionaires, I mean, after all, they live in a very different world than you and me. They don't worry about crime. They live in gated mansions with private security 24/7. They don't need to interact with the riffraff like you and me when they travel. They're driven wherever they go in bulletproof limousines or on helicopters, and they fly private jets, so they don't even have to go through airport security or show their ID. I had lunch with a near billionaire a few years ago. He rented an entire restaurant for an entire day just so 4 of us could have a quiet lunch while his driver and security detail patrolled the nearby parking lots and empty streets. Dinner at one of the half-dozen billionaire-friendly restaurants in New York City. Yes, there are some. Typically starts around $800 a person, and that doesn't include tips, taxes, or drinks. The prices really doesn't reflect the cost of the food or even the service and the rent. It's to keep out the riffraff. Some of these restaurants, in fact, that cater to billionaires in New York City, and not just New York City, by the way, this is also true of Los Angeles and New York. Some of them don't even have names on the door. In fact, one of them in New York, the door is hidden behind a painting inside an office building.
I just wanted to chime in to say I despise these people so much. I despise them so much. If somebody is living a lifestyle that is utterly unattainable by their employees, I got a problem with them. It's not to say somebody lives in a big house and buys the fancy steaks instead of the cheap steaks. No, if somebody's doing something where they're buying out a restaurant, the entirety of a restaurant, just so they don't get bothered with the riffraff, they deserve to be among the riffraff. And in fact, I would go so far as to say we are all the riffraff, and some of us just get the opportunity to stand on the necks of others to get their chin a little higher. And so they choose to do that. They can go to hell. Tom Hartman, please explain to us why it is they also end up supporting laws that attack the rest of us and policies that make us dumber and weaker and more distracted.
Real high-end office
there's a
building.
hint.
They have unlisted phone numbers. Their kids don't attend public schools or colleges. Their servants, their masseuses, their nannies, their mistresses, and their chefs often live on the grounds of their estates. When they vacation, they fly private jets to their private yachts that have enough staterooms to accommodate 100 of their closest friends. Just ask Clarence Thomas if you have any curiosity or doubts about that. So why do people like this give a damn about whether a trans girl wants to compete in public high school sports? Their kids don't go to public high schools. Why do they care whether a 10-year-old girl who gets raped by her uncle in Ohio can get an abortion? Why do they fund politicians making loud noises about the horrors of white children learning that their ancestors enslaved African-American people? Why do they care about the rights of those kids' parents to own semi-automatic weapons? None of this stuff has any impact whatsoever on the lives of these billionaires. Why do they fund it? Why would any morbidly rich person in America give a damn about these so-called Republican social issues? Similarly, why would American industry favor politicians dedicated to a law in Texas that requires that this be posted in every public elementary school in type large enough to be read anywhere in the class, quote, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass." Do they really want second graders talking about infidelity, gay and straight rape, and bestiality?
Now, I can tell you why Republicans are told that billionaires do this. Republicans are told that billionaires do this because somehow those belief systems equal the success they've experienced. It's the prosperity gospel. They are told that these billionaires support these things because that is how they got all their power, and they want America to be prosperous in these ways. Of course, that's not the truth. The truth is going to come down to how they make money off of it, as it does with everything they do. How they make money off of supporting these things.
Or, "I am the Lord thy God, a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generations of them that hate me, Do they really want school children taught about the thousands of people in the Bible who were slaughtered by God or at God's direction? Do wealthy businessmen who rarely even go to church fund politicians who demand these commandments? I mean, why? Actually, it turns out there's a very rational, albeit cynical, answer. American billionaires and the corporations that make them rich share a couple of big concerns that are well served by Republicans' ongoing culture wars and their embrace of fascist behavior and ideology. In fact, there's an entire field of academic scholarship dedicated to examining this dynamic. It's called diversionary warfare. When Henry V took the British throne in 1415, many of the country's noblemen didn't recognize him because his father, Henry IV, had usurped the throne from its rightful holder, Richard II. So Henry quickly declared war on France, and within months he had succeeded at the Battle of Agincourt, and the country rallied around him. In April of 1982, Margaret Thatcher was facing a crisis of confidence after gutting the nation's social safety net and privatizing the railroads and things. So what did she do? She had and unemployment was at a record high. Her numbers were in the total tank. So what did she do? She declared war against Argentina around the Falklands. 255 British troops died, only 3 Argentinians. But hey, they won the war. On October 23rd, 1983, terrorists blew up a Marine barracks in Lebanon, killing 241 Americans and making Ronald Reagan, whose response was to cut and run, he pulled all our troops out, look like a coward and impotent. So taking a cue from Thatcher, 2 days later, Reagan bombed and invaded the tiny Caribbean island of Grenada, saying he was going to save 800 medical students.
I'll do you one better. In 2000, George W. Bush was barely elected president. In fact, we now know that he was not. The American people chose Al Gore in 2000. It came down to Florida, of which the governor at the time was George W. Bush's brother, Jeb. He ended up taking that to the Supreme Court, the recount, and the decision was essentially George W. Bush has already said he's president, and it would be awkward now to go back on that. And Al Gore did what was considered at the time the noble thing, which is back out from the fight, shy away from it, in the interest of unity. In the interest of unity, we were given the wrong president. Well, how'd that end up going? We ended up going to war a couple years later. An excuse was given in September of 2001. We already knew that George W. Bush was gunning for Saddam Hussein. And in 2004, George W. Bush was reelected with the popular vote because he was a wartime president. Forcing conflict upon the American people is how the GOP sustains itself. They're like a bunch of vampires. They got to bleed us to survive.
After that, his popularity numbers shot up. He had been below both Walter Mondale and John Glenn, his two most likely opposition candidates in the 1984 election. He had been way behind them. But after his war on Grenada, boom, his numbers went right up and he won the 1984 election. Most recently in 2001, George W. Bush. Nobody thought he was a legitimate president. His brother knocked 90,000 African Americans off the voting rolls in Florida, and he only won by 537 votes.
I should have given the man credit. Of course he goes over this.
So what does he do? 9/11 provides him with an opportunity to attack Iraq and Afghanistan, become a wartime president, even though Iraq and Afghanistan had nothing to do with 9/11. It was plotted in Germany and Florida, and it was run out of New York and Boston. But hey, it got him reelected. So this is what's going on. These Republicans are funding the culture wars to keep Republicans in power because Republicans are going to give them what they want. I mean, this is an old song, right? This goes on for a long way back. So now we stand on a precipice. Are we going to continue to allow global warming to kill our people? Are we going to continue to let our teachers be intimidated by Nazis? Are we going to perpetuate the slaughter of our children from the highest gun ownership rates in the country? Are we going to keep young people chained to student debt? Are we going to let corporations continue to block workers from forming unions? Are we going to force American women?
And so on and so forth. Basically everything Republicans stand for is designed to either directly bleed the American people to give the money, the profits of that, to the rich, or it's designed to get the American people to fight each other. It's why we have the rule in chat that you got to stick to one thing at a time if you're debating something, and you got to debate one person at a time if you're debating something. Because it's the technique of the right to gish gallop. It's the technique of the right to ramble on and on and on about nonsense. Because they don't actually have anything worth a damn to say. All they have is complaints. All they have is grievances with this group or that group. And by and large, those have been force-fed to them through Fox, through Steven Crowder, through all the nonsense right-wing talking heads that you hear. And those are funded by billionaires. Remember, every accusation is a confession. What is the right-wing spiel? The conspiracy theory nutters, what do they say? Oh, a secretive group of billionaires, of globalists. We all know what that means. Controlling everything, controlling what you hear. Gay frogs. The confession. Steven Crowder got his start by getting a big check from a billionaire. Same with Ben Shapiro. Same with Fox. Same with all of them. They need us fighting each other in order to get away with robbing us. We're so distracted with this tussle that they reach into our pockets and take money out of our wallets. They get us agreeing, at least enough of us, agreeing to give up our rights, to accept bad deals, to work an infinite amount of hours for peanuts, to kill ourselves slowly but certainly for our masters, for our betters, to profit. And the entire time, by the way, right-wingers, the entire time they're profiting off of you falling for their crap, they're laughing at you. Nobody has a lower opinion of you than the people who profit from your foolishness. Now, your reaction to that could be to get angry at your equals who are calling you foolish. We're calling you foolish because you're hurting yourself and you're hurting the rest of us. And because we believe there is a point in bringing this to your attention. We believe you're capable of better. Billionaires don't. Billionaires think, right-wing voters, that no matter what, you will fall for their grift. You will keep them in power. You will keep their boots firmly on your neck. That's what they believe. Right-wingers. Are they right? Are they correct? I wonder. I'll tell you this, if you're not a right-winger, I got great news for you. More and more people are waking up to this reality. You can help them. Tell them about this technique. Tell them about how the billionaires are turning us against each other so that they can keep unjustly being billionaires. Well, you and I stay nice and poor. Tell them about that. Remember, you're going to have an inherent advantage over everybody that jumps to disagree with you. Your advantage continues to be that you're correct. Check out what the Wicked community has to say. Domenico says, I am with you, U.S. Domgra. Wait, Domenico. I don't know what those abbreviations mean. DOMGRA, future. POTUS. That one I know. I hope so, sir. I hope you are indeed. Well said, Jay, says Domenico. Thank you. Mars Falcon says, we don't have time for that green new thingy, in quotes. That's from Pelosi. Exactly. Douglas Connor says, watch out, that illegal is trying to steal your cookie, GOP cookie monster. Yes. Yes, that is exactly correct. Oh, Wicked Foxy Dragon says, frogs are asexual. They change sexes when needed. There are no gay frogs. Interesting. Fair enough. Oh, God. We just live in such weird times. How did Alex Jones have a career? We're going to have to explain that to future generations, and I don't have an explanation right now. Oh. I got one more for you. I think we need to celebrate some heroes. Let's do it. Soon we're going to talk about Zoe Zephyr, one of the most heroic legislators we currently have, one of the most heroic current representatives that we currently have. But right now I want to talk about the governors. There have been governors in some states that have been doing downright dastardly things. But let us not forget, there are also governors doing wonderful things, doing things that they will be praised for in the future, and they should be praised for now. Let's have a look at some local reporting about just this very topic. This is from KHQ. Let's have a little look-see. Washington governor signs legal protection. That's Jay Inslee. Signs legal protections for people who travel for abortions and gender-affirming care. Hell yes. Washington and Minnesota won't cooperate with attempts to prosecute out-of-state patients seeking reproductive or gender-affirming procedures and treatment under new laws signed Thursday by the two states' Democratic governors. They're the latest liberal states to enact, liberal's a hell of a stretch, but latest liberal states to enact legal safeguards as Republican legislators across the country are rushing to block or limit transgender and abortion health care. More than a dozen states have effectively banned abortion outright in the year since the Supreme Court's conservative majority overturned Roe v. Wade. For the record, that is the first time in history the Supreme Court has acted to reduce the rights of Americans. We got to get rid of them. Freedom of choice is a health care issue. We are protecting access to health care, said Governor Jay Inslee, who wore a pink tie to the outdoor bill signing ceremony in Seattle. Why do we care? The laws block other states from using Washington or Minnesota-run courts or judicial processes to enforce their bans, things like warrants, subpoenas, extradition requests, or other court documents. In other words, they're doing everything they can to bully American citizens. They're trying their hardest to make sure that America is a miserable place for a certain section of our population. Anti-abortion advocates and legislators questioned the need for Washington's and Minnesota's shield laws since abortion is already protected under state laws. Washington Republican Jim Walsh tweeted that policies are anti-family. No, they aren't. They are pro-freedom. Halfway across the country, Governor Tim Walz made Minnesota a refuge for young people coming from other states for gender-affirming care. We celebrated this on the channel. He also signed legislation Thursday making Minnesota a sanctuary for abortion patients from other states and banning so-called conversion therapy, hell yes, for LGBTQ plus youth. Look, I don't know how hard this concept is to understand, Walz said. When someone else is given basic rights, others don't lose theirs. We're not cutting a pie here. We're giving basic rights to every single Minnesotan. God damn, Minnesota. I mean, you ought to be proud. You picked real good with this fella. Walz and Inslee signed Washington too. Signed the bills on a day when Republican legislators in Kansas, guess who should not be proud right now, enacted what may be the most sweeping anti-transgender bathroom law in the nation. A day earlier, Montana Republican leaders barred a transgender state lawmaker from the House floor after she rebuked colleagues who voted to ban gender-affirming care for children. That is Zoe Zephyr. And she is deserving of her own segment. She's going to get it. But let's just leave it at the fact that we need more like her representing us. The Washington law responds to states such as neighboring Idaho that made it illegal for an adult to help a minor get an abortion without parental consent. And starting next year, anyone in Idaho who provides gender-affirming medical care for transgender youth could end up a convicted felon. They are going after the doctors. Similarly, the new Minnesota law is aimed at abortion patients not only from neighboring states, but those from as far away as Texas who have made Minnesota a destination. So in other words, these two states, Washington and Minnesota, are taking steps to ensure, similar to states that protected escaped slaves way back when, they're making sure that they are not having to turn over Americans to an unjust government. We got to keep up the fight, but look, there is something we can do to ensure that we see more of the good behavior and less of the bad. Remember that politicians are constantly looking at their own futures, and they are constantly in need of reassurance. I'm sure Jay Inslee, when he did this decision, is wondering, how much will this affect my future presidential ambitions? Just assume that every single person involved in politics that you meet is planning to be president eventually. Hoping things work out that way. Encourage them. Make this behavior something that they see as conducive to their long-term aspirations. In the description, there is the contact page for the governor of Washington and Minnesota, Inslee and Walz. Write them. Tell them, good job. Tell them, I'm from X and I support you. I think what you just did there is the kind of thing I want to see, is the kind of thing leaders should do. And I see you as a good leader. Encourage them to be decent and just, and make sure that they are motivated to keep doing things like this, because by God, they earned it. All right, let's have a look at what the Wicked community has to say. Mars Falcon, exactly the same intent. Oh, he's talking of wireless mic. Let me have a gander here. Mars Falcon says Idaho is aiming to garner the capital in the new Handmaid's Tale country they are building. Yeah. Yep. Mars Falcon said Jay Inslee has been solid for a while. No politician does all the things I'd like, but he is one of the decent ones. Thing is, he is stepping away from politics after his term expires, though. Yeah, I do wonder. Douglas Connors asks, is Zoe Zephyr the one who said she'd burn it all down to help the kids? I don't remember. Sorry, I'm flawed human. I don't recall. Patrick Thompson says, how is liberal a stretch? I guess I'm using liberal in the old-fashioned sense where it means leftist. It really doesn't anymore. But these folks who you see taking extraordinary steps, Jay Inslee, etc., they are people I strongly agree with now, but in more sane times, I would probably have lots of nits to pick with them. But they're just, they're purple leaning blue, I suppose I would say. But that said, this ain't a Jay Inslee heckling stream. Heck no, he's done so well. And as Mars Falcon points out, he's been doing well recently. It's a shame that he says he's going to step away from politics, but I so rarely actually believe any of that. I have a feeling in 2024 we'll see. In 2028 we'll hear from him again. Mars Falcon, the people of her district elected her to speak for them. Not being allowed to make the arguments for and against proposed legislation is silencing the people that voted her in. This is about Zoe Zephyr. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's no different than what happened in Tennessee with the Justins, Jones and Pearson, and Gloria. I'm sorry, I don't recall her last name, but I do remember her first name because I love the song Gloria, Gloria, Gloria. Yeah, it's the exact same thing. They are silencing whole districts when they do this. Republicans, conservatives in the United States, I dare say, from what I've seen, and Douglas can back me up here, conservatives around the world are not interested in a fair fight. They're not interested in democracy. They will take any dirty chance they can to get more power for themselves. It's that simple. Pierre Poliver is who I'm thinking of as the poster boy for that in Canada, but he's by no means by himself in this. Deeply sad. Although, one of the reasons, one of the things that got me looking at, I'll do a shout out, by the way, looking at the True North Eager Beaver podcast was an interest in Canadian politics that that comes from a very selfish place. I think there is a lot in the structure of Canadian politics that makes it easier for good ideas to be heard. I think their scandal life cycle is quicker because the truth comes to the fore faster. We could definitely take some lessons, if not from their structure, then from their culture, just how they deal with these things. There is a very there's an openness about it all that I think we could adopt. Now that said, the whole world's going through this with right wingers right now. There's no country that I'm aware of that doesn't have a bunch of right wingers lying. And unfortunately, with the setup we are currently enduring, the responsibility for dealing with that it's fallen to the people. So, don't let yourself get overwhelmed. Remember that you don't need to memorize every single scandal. Once you are sure of why X, Y, or Z politician is a bad person, cannot be trusted, hang on to that and use that as your example. It's a way to keep yourself from getting tired. If you taste a bad meal, I'm going to pretend like the rest of us, like I also eat like a gentleman. You taste a bad meal and you know it's terrible, you don't have to finish the plate to give your judgment. Similarly, you don't need to keep track of everything what Jeb Bush did, everything, who's that Texas fella? Greg Abbott does. as soon as you see these folks abandon their state during a tragedy or propose legislation that is going to make their electrical grid a horror show, you just keep bringing that up. We'll talk more about dealing with these punks, certainly. Broad techniques that you can use in any situation, I think that'll be valuable. But do remember, the prize is the thing we're building for. Everything that we are doing should focus on this. It's 2024. Right now, the world is going to be watching the United States to see if we finally deal with this fascism that has been building or not. And they're not watching because the United States is somehow the king of the world. No, it's like the guy that got bit first in a zombie apocalypse. Is this the kind where you turn into a zombie after you get bit, or are we in a different kind of zombie movie? That's what they're looking at. Let's do the work necessary to make sure that there is a blue House, a blue Senate, and a blue White House in 2024, because if we can pull that off, we will have answered the question for greedy politicians around the world: does this behavior pay off in the long run? The answer needs to be no. A firm no. Good news is, polls seem to suggest, yeah, the majority of Americans are sick of this nonsense. But let's help that out. Let's make it crystal clear that we will not put up with this. Blue House, blue Senate, and for God's sake, vote in the primaries. Go as left as you can. Douglas Connors, bringing out the lyrics. But you really don't remember. Was it something that they said? All those voices in your head, calling Gloria. Yeah, all right. Well, I'm gonna go listen to that song now. Thank you all so much for joining me on this 2 for Tuesday. If you liked the show, please give it a like. If you think you'd like to hear more, give it a subscribe. And if you want more people helping us out, joining us with these mail-in campaigns, working collectively to make a difference in the U.S. and around the world, share this stream with your community. I want you and people like you to be here. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Thanks for joining me on this 2 for Tuesday. Oh, my name's Jake.